Hello and welcome back to Vanessa's podcast, and I am live. And today I have a prepared episode for you. It's going to be the ugly imposter syndrome and building confidence. I thought it was very funny, the ugly imposter syndrome. So I thought, who doesn't need that? Everybody does. So why not doing an episode about that, and I could actually help somebody to improve not only their confidence level, but realizing that they are being followed by this imposter syndrome that has been following them for a decade now. So let's get started. That confidence. Quick check-in. Have you ever felt like a fraud? Thought you don't belong in the room? It's all luck and will crashing down when someone discovers you? Have you ever felt that way? Now think for a second. Let it sit in your mind. The qualifiers, the awkward apathy, the I don't know how I got there. Imposter syndrome is no joke. It's a psychological phenomena that is categorized by the belief that you are inadequate despite evidence that you are actually quite successful. According to Dr. Valerie Young, an expert on imposter syndrome, there are 5 types of imposter syndrome. Certain activity can help combat each of those types. So let's discuss the types. The first is the perfectionist. Control freak anyone? This type always feels like they can do better and success is never achieved, especially not in a situation where people are assisting with the final project. It could always be better if you did it, and you could have always done it better, so the vicious cycle continues. The second is the superwoman or man. This type is the one constantly trying to prove their worth despite their success. They work longer than anyone else, pushing their own physical limits to prove to themselves and the world that they are worth it, even when no one questions their worth. The third is the natural genius. Irritated when you don't get something immediately, feel like you should have understood something by now and beat yourself if you don't. Beat yourself up. A lot of us are like this. Is immediately beat ourselves up when we don't understand something, we don't achieve something right away. I can relate to this one. This is you, beside the part of the natural genius, because I am not natural genius. The fourth is the soloist. Need to do it yourself? Does asking for help sounds like a failure? So there's those people who think like asking for help means that they're a failure. Means that they are less than, means that they don't know enough, means that they can't take care of themselves, means that they can't figure it out on their own, so it makes them feel immediately like failures. You might be a soloist, so ask yourself, do you feel like you always feel like you can ask somebody something? The final is the expert. You fall into this type if you're measuring yourself on what or how much you know. Feel like you'll never know enough to be competent, and fear that you'll be uncovered as a fraud because you don't know enough. So is that person who feel like they have to be on the top all the time, they know the answers to everything, and if they don't, then they feel like a fraud immediately. All right, let's keep going. Think of all the people who suffer from the imposter syndrome. I think there's a lot of them. According to a 2011 article from the International Journal of Behavioral Science, some 70% of people suffer from the imposter syndrome. The unfortunate truth is that many of us feel this way, and often that's what makes advocating for ourselves professionally difficult at the very least. Confidence is one of those funny side effects of improv, mainly because you can't necessarily pinpoint specific activity that helps with confidence. Yet, at the same time, I can say without hesitation that they all help. The secret sauce, once again, yes and. Yes and is great for conversation. Affirm and equalize and ideation. Ideation, affirm and elevate, as well as listening, recap and confirmation. You already know how it can easily be brought into all areas of life, not limited to professional. Confidence in professional life often comes from understanding that you can indeed handle whatever comes along. You are prepared for anything and you can roll with whatever the world and work throws at you. Those blips, simply that, a blip that you deal with. Blips is like a problem or just something comes your way that you don't know what to do with it. Building confidence with the power of yes and. When you have confidence in your ability to handle anything that happens or could happen, no matter how unexpected it might be, you start simply absorbing and reacting to all of the other stuff around you as part of your life. Remember, the yes in yes and isn't agreeing, it's affirming a reality. If you start to say yes to the reality around you and affirm that, yes, this is all happening and I have to deal with it, things simply becomes a small part of a larger picture of your life. Also, when you are attending to things happening around you, you can incorporate them into your life instead of fighting it. Pretending it's not happening, or worse, reasoning that this is always happening to you, will make things worse. So try this. Come up with an idea for a new thing. Take your object from the last activity and your job is to yes and yourself for this new idea. Becoming more and more creative with each thought. For example, if your object was a tube or a chapstick, you might say, I'm going to come up with a new chapstick. Yes, and this chapstick won't dry out your lips. Yes, and it won't be waxy. Yes, and it won't melt in your pocket. Yes, and it will be available in all sorts of flavors. Yes, and you can get your daily dose of coffee in a chapstick. Remember, with yes and, you aren't worrying about being right or coming up with something that won't fail. You're working on creativity. This helps explore the creative possibility using yes and. Brainstorming becomes harder and harder as we settle into adult. The activity gives you a tool to ideate. Yes and makes you think about what the possibilities beyond your original idea could be. You are, yes, ing, the possibility. You are saying there is a possibility and chance it could happen, and it is path. It is a path. So, I'm going to end with this. If you need some help on speaking confidently, there's an activity for that. The history of the world is one of my favorite activities to get people working on confidence and start to work against Imposter Syndrome. This is also one you can play with yourself or with a friend or two. If you're doing this by yourself, take a moment to write down a few things or events that can be anything from a horse, cat, or bird to a holiday, a taco, or a church. Pick one at random. Now rehash the history of it. No, really, start talking about the history of the horse or how the bird got his wings. It doesn't need to be factual history. Your job is simply to talk about the 1 to 2 minute history of that horse or bird wings or taco or whatever you choose. The key here? Sustain credibility. You need to project confidence and knowledge about a topic you know nothing about. When you start, you'll probably feel a little weird and awkward. And that's the point. It's to allow yourself to be weird and awkward and to not let it get to your head. After a bit, you might pick up some steam. And when you get to the point of bringing it home, you'll get a little awkward again. Try it and reflect on how you felt when you were on a roll with your story. Did you get to a point where you were very excited and really believed that crazy story you were concocting? That's the excitement you should channel, because that excitement looks a lot like passion. And passion lends itself to confidence. So, I hope this will help you out a little bit with that ugly imposter syndrome and building your confidence. So thank you for listening, everybody, and I'll see you next time on Vanessa's podcast.